For 17 years, Romeo shared his master's solitudes and social chaos, his inertias and manias, his voluntary maledictions, involuntary prayers, his worst, his best, his everything. These two were no duo. They were a six-legged man-dog unit, so incessantly linked that most people found them absurd at first. But after years would pass and they'd bump into the Jamie-Romeo unit again, something would flip like an egg over easy inside them, and the absurd would become the exemplary. Yes, Romeo was just a dog. But for 17 years he watched over Jamie's erratic incarnation with keenest interest, yet without judgment, the way poor old Jesus once recommended we all watch over one another. Romeo's love for his master came within a single condition of attaining that godlike level known as unconditional. What's more, the sole condition to Romeo's love was simply his wish that Jamie never leave his sight. So that's who, on March 1st, 2000, Jamie held in his arms. That's whose brown eyes he gazed into, then turned from to nod to the doctor. That was the life, the friend, the part of himself he then watched die via lethal injection. The adventures of the six-legged Jamie-Romeo unit would fill 1,000 pages. Only one such adventure funnels into the mystery I want to ponder here. It concerns a door. In the 41st chapter of the book of Job, the poet, in pondering the Almighty, asks, "Who can open the doors of his face?" My favorite response to this is Emerson's. There is a crack in everything God has made. As his parting gift to his friend and master, Romeo showed Jamie just such a crack. The very crack, so Jamie swears, that serves the soul as door, offering a deathless exit out of the otherwise airtight world in which God has fatally encased us. Jamie's no mystic. There is, he insists, no woo-woo in his experience. He says that Romeo, as a parting gift, answered Job 41's question by literally opening a door in this world's face, showing him a way out. The door was palpable, he says, invisible but physical. I heard and felt it. It was real. To preface it, all that really need be said is that for 17 years, Romeo and Jamie comprised a comic yet beautiful union, but that somehow Jamie never could quite understand it. Romeo grew old while Jamie didn't, despite their union. The dog's teeth became useless nubs. His sight and hearing faded. His sleek fur grew drab and, to put it modestly, doggy-smelling. Chronic arthritis turned his front paws into something more like flippers. The drugs for the arthritis attacked and weakened his heart. There's a side hill yard with a large cement goldfish pond behind Risa and Jamie's Northwest Portland apartment house. In exchange for maintaining this pond, Jamie purchased lavatorial rights for Romeo and the azaleas above the pond. One frigid winter morning, Jamie let the dog out to use his beshrubbed bathroom, whistled a half hour later, then walked out to see why the dog hadn't come. He found that Romeo's hips had collapsed, sending him sideways down the little hill into the ice-rimmed pond, where he now stood submerged to the neck, too arthritic to climb out. But because Jamie had long since forbidden Romeo to bark in the morning, lest he wake the neighbors, the dog remained silent. Unable to move, dying of hypothermia, he would have stood in the icy water, refusing to break his master's command till his spirit left him. That's what my dog Pancake did. Within 2 days of this episode, Romeo developed a sinus infection that grew chronic. The recommended drugs didn't cure the infection, but they did make Romeo incontinent. Mortification at every indoor mistake was now as palpable in his eyes as his love. He began to sneeze convulsively, trying to clear the infected sinuses, but his arthritis had destroyed his ability to control the sneezes, so he'd accidentally smash his muzzle on the floor, giving himself profuse nosebleeds. These too mortified him. The paw prints Risa and Jamie would find when they'd get home from work showed how Romeo hobbled round and round the apartment, trying between sneezes to lick up all the blood he kept spilling. The downward spiral went on for months. Risa was a saint about it, never once suggesting the dog be put down. We've been together 4 years, she told Jamie. You and Romeo have been together 17. He's your call. In marriage, though, nothing belongs to just one person. Jamie did all the cleanup when he was home, but often wasn't. Risa dealt with every incontinence without complaint. The end didn't come till Risa and Jamie's 15-month-old daughter, Lily, was given one of those leg-propelled bumper car-like contraptions toddlers use to learn to walk. Lily grew adept at it, then downright reckless, one day ramming the thing into a deep asleep Romeo. He lurched up and grabbed her shin, just a warning grab, but one old fang, broken off to a point years before, pierced Lily, drew blood. Even then, Risa made no ultimatum, but Romeo himself was so mortified that he refused for weeks afterward to leave the big tuba case Jamie had long since turned into his doggy bed, except to have more accidents, sneeze, bang his muzzle, bleed. The time had come. As Romeo's namesake finally put it, "Let me have a dram of poison, such soon speeding gear as will disperse itself through all the veins, that the life-weary taker may fall dead, and that the trunk may be discharged of breath as violently as hasty powder fired doth hurry from the fatal cannon's womb." I always like to read a little Shakespeare because he's even wordier than me. In the tiny Oregon coast town of Hebo, a college pal of Risa's, a laconic Chinese-American, Guy Lee, was the practicing large animal vet. 3 weeks after the bite, seeing Romeo still in bed, Jamie quietly asked Risa to phone Guy. Guy said, "Have him bring the dog before we open at 8 tomorrow." Jamie chose Guy on the coast for a reason. An hour south of Hebo, the storm-smashed basaltic headland juts out into the Pacific. This was the place where Jamie and his sister Judith had scattered their mother's ashes when they were 5 and 7 years old. Jamie and Romeo had hiked the headland every summer for 17 years. The most beautiful, haunted place he knew was the only place Jamie could imagine leaving this dog behind for good. At 4:30 a.m., March 1, Jamie slipped a fold-up army shovel into the bed of his Toyota truck, loaded the tuba-case dog bed, whistled for the dog. When Romeo came prancing eagerly and at once, St. Risa finally lost it. Her sobs as she hugged Romeo goodbye made him feel confused and guilty, which made Risa sob even harder. "It's not your fault, it's not your fault," she kept gasping, which made Lily start to cry, which made Romeo look as if even he were crying, which made Lily start to laugh, which cheered Risa and Romeo back up. Jamie grabbed Romeo quickly, set him on the front passenger seat, and drove away fast while it still seemed remotely possible. As Romeo rode toward the coast in his old shotgun position, he seemed to grow younger by the mile. Risa had displaced him in this seat of honor years ago. Much as he loved her, Romeo resumed his old spot with a look of smug vindication. They reached Hebo in 3 hours. Jamie located the large animal clinic, then drove, as prearranged, around back, parking in a spruce-lined, mist-shrouded meadow. Romeo took one look at the meadow and began blissfully panting in anticipation of a hike. Then Guy Lee stepped out the back door, drams and soon speeding gear at the ready. Romeo's pant changed to one of fear. Though he'd never met Guy, he recognized Risa's friend at once for what he was, a damned animal doctor. Jamie felt sick as Guy approached to think that Romeo's distrust of vets had been prophetic all along. And mortality wasn't even the source of Romeo's fears. Vets had twice saved his life, once from salmon fever, once from a poisoned deer carcass, but in so doing, they'd committed the unforgivable sin. They'd separated Romeo from his master.